With the trade deadline approaching, who should the New York Mets look to trade off? Let's talk about it. Well, welcome back to New York Sports WickerMedia. I'm Wa2K99. Thank you, as always, for taking the time to watch these videos. So the New York Mets resumed their regular season on Friday against the LA Dodgers at home. They mustered one hit during the entire game. Full disclosure, I did not watch this particular game. I was at a Chris Stapleton concert, definitely a better use of my time. But I was following the game. And when I found out in the bottom of the first inning, when Brandon Nimmo hits a home run that gets called back as a double correctly by the umpire, okay, when that gets called back to a double, I said to myself, watch, if the Mets don't score this run, they're getting shut out. I said, I knew it right at that moment, and it's exactly what happened. When the Mets couldn't score Nimmo in the bottom of the first inning, you had to know they were in trouble. It is the exact same thing that we watched for the first 90 games of the absolute wretched 2023 Major League Baseball season. They dropped the first game of the series to the Dodgers. Now, there are 14 games to go before the trade deadline, which is going to be August 1st this year. Personally, I think it was a lot better when it was on July 31st, primarily because it's my birthday, but that's neither here nor there. But the Mets' record has plummeted to 42 wins and 49 losses. They are 8 games behind the third wild card spot, and they would have to hurdle 5 teams to get into that third wild card position. At this point, even the most diehard Mets fan has to acknowledge this team has to lean towards selling assets at the trade deadline and revamping this roster a little bit. You got to retool. I'm not saying you have to tear the whole thing down and start from a brand new foundation, but clearly the mix isn't right. This season it had bad mojo from the get-go. As soon as Edwin Diaz went down, I knew they were in trouble. Most Mets fans knew they were in trouble. I didn't know it was going to be this bad, in all seriousness. But I look at the players on this roster that the Mets could realistically trade off. Now, I know there's going to be a lot of people just praying for Scherzer and Verlander to go. The bottom line is this. They have huge contracts. They have no movement clauses. The Mets are going to have to eat so much of that money, if not all of that money, to get any kind of a trade done. And even if they do eat a lot of money, I don't think it's going to be for a very good prospect because of all that, of all the money they have to eat. And furthermore, who's to say that these two guys are going to waive their no-trade clauses? If you have a no-trade clause, it's hard for me to imagine that you're actually going to be traded, barring something very unforeseen. And besides, who would want Max Scherzer right now? I don't need to go into another Max Scherzer rant. I've already done plenty of those over the last week or so, but I don't even know who'd want Scherzer. Verlander, back of the rotation pitcher. That's what he is. People talked about how Verlander couldn't win a game in the World Series. He's almost becoming that level of pitcher with the Mets. Justin Verlander, you know what Justin Verlander has become to me? Justin Verlander is like Al Leiter at the end of his Mets reign. You try to get through 5 innings, maybe 1 run allowed. He'll go 3-2 to a whole bunch of batters. That's what Justin Verlander has turned into, which is amazing considering, he was never really a walk-prone pitcher. But we saw 6 walks in 5 innings against the Dodgers. Just no excuse for that. That is not Justin Verlander. So I don't think they're going to go. I can't take anybody seriously who says the Mets should trade Pete Alonso. Alonso is somebody you make a lifetime Met. I know he's having a down season. I still think it's because he is not right after getting hit intentionally on the wrist by Charlie Morton. But no, players who hit 40 to 50 home runs a year, they don't just come from anywhere. Pete Alonso is your franchise player. He is your personality. He is a player you give a long-term contract to. So to me, I can't even entertain it. And I also thought about 2 other players, guys who I've ripped. On my Wednesday Night Live show, I ripped these guys. Starling Marte and Jeff McNeil. Well, McNeil just signed a new contract, 4 years, $50 million. So he's got 3 more years to go after this season. I think you can make a better argument for McNeil being traded over Marte. Marte, on the other hand, forget it. He's 34 years old. He's got 2 more years under contract at $19.5 million per season. What team is going to take on that contract for a player whose value is just diminishing, it seems, by the day. By the day! The only thing Starling Marte does well now is steal bases. Who wants to pay $19.5 million for a glorified version of Billy Hamilton or Gerard Dyson? It doesn't make any sense. So I've got 5 players in mind who I think are realistic trade targets. Number 5 is Adam Ottavino, the Mets' current setup man. Now, he's under contract for this year, but he's got a $6.75 million player option for next year. So this might be attractive to some teams. They would have a reliever under control for the next season. Most likely, if Ottavino decides he wants to opt in, I'm sure that team would talk to Ottavino about that possibility. Now, he hasn't had the best season in the world by any stretch. 15 earned runs allowed in 36 innings. He's allowed 5 home runs. His whip is pretty good. It's 1.18. He hasn't been as good this year as he was last year, but I could see a team taking a chance on him. Number 4 is Brooksraley, the Mets' left-handed specialist. 31 innings pitched this year, 8 earned runs allowed, 2.30 ERA, and a free agent after this season. So if a team is looking for a lefty, maybe with an expiring contract, Raley might be somebody the Mets want to think about dealing. And just for a couple of teams that might make sense, you might want to look at the Cincinnati Reds. Right in the middle of the playoff race, they have the 4th worst bullpen ERA in baseball. They need some reinforcements. Even the LA Dodgers, they have the 9th worst bullpen ERA. So you can make a good argument for Ottavino or Raley going to one of those 2 National League franchises. Number 3 for me is going to be Markcanha. Also has a contract that ends at the end of this season. Good all-around professional player. He is a player I could see succeeding in the playoffs in a big moment. Whether it's stealing a base, whether it's making a defensive play, even hitting a home run. We've seen him have some big home runs, particularly against the Phillies, with his time as the Mets. He's got 6 home runs, 6 stolen bases this year, hitting only .242, which is not all that great. But I could see Canha being a useful piece if a team has maybe an outfielder that goes down, or if they need one more. They want to beef up their bench a little bit. Markcanha would make quite a bit of sense because I don't really need to see Markcanha play for the Mets again for the rest of the season. We know what he is. We know he's going to be gone after this season. God bless him. But there's other players on this team that I want to see more of in the outfield, and I want to see what they can do. All right. So number 2 is going to be Tommy Pham. A 1-year, $6 million contract, an absolutely fantastic contract that was given out. He's hitting .271, 9 home runs, 10 stolen bases. He'll play great defense for you. Very good right-handed batter. Can DH, can play outfield, can be your right-handed bat off the bench. I could see Tommy Pham being a very good hire guy. Tommy the Gun Pham. I think that's what I think that would work out really, really well for a team that's in the playoff mix that needs to add a little all-around skill to their lineup for a very low price. And number 1, it's got to be David Robertson, the Mets closer, the one saving grace of this Mets bullpen, and in my mind, the MVP for the New York Mets in 2023. He's got a 2.06 ERA, 46 strikeouts to just 11 walks, a 1.01 whip. He has been absolutely fantastic for the Mets, and I really think Robertson is the player that you could get quite a bit back from. I could see 2 or 3 legitimate prospects coming back to the Mets for a setup man / closer. I think the Mets, if there's one player I think the Mets really should deal, it's David Robertson. I know it's going to hurt over the last 70 games, without Robertson in the bullpen, but let's be honest. If you're a Mets fan, what aggravation do you have? Why would you be worried that the bullpen's going to blow a game when these games essentially mean little to nothing? The only thing it's going to matter for is draft position, which will probably be dropping again because the Mets are over the luxury tax. So to me, it's one of those things. With Robertson traded away, I would treat it like I look at the Mets. I expect the worst, hope for the best. And if one of these guys gets through an inning, if Drew Smith gets through an inning, if Grant Hardwig emerges, if Dominic Leone gets through an inning scoreless, you get down on your knees, you light the candles, and you say, thank you, God, he didn't give up a run. Okay, so those are my 5 Mets that I think are most likely to be traded at the deadline. I think Robertson you're going to get the most value for. All right, well, those are my thoughts. I want to see yours. Put them down there in the comments. Who do you think the Mets should trade away but before the August 1st trade deadline? Thanks very much for watching, everybody. And don't forget to join me Wednesday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern, for Wednesday Night Live with WA2K99. Thanks, everybody, for watching today. I'll see you right back here with more content from you know where. the wicker chair.